Language barrier, largely that's a big factor, and teachers have to deal with bilingual education, and it's going to continue. You've also had an increase in the black population and the Asian population in this community. So the metro area and the state are being influenced hugely by an influx of new people.
Colorado has approximately 4 million people, and the Hispanic community represents 1/2 million.
They have, and most of those are in the metro area. About half of those are in the metro area, which draws, the economy here has been so strong. That's one of the main factors drawing people here. They come here for the same reason that most people do, the quality of life and an opportunity to make a good living. And that trend isn't likely to end soon, and people are going to have to learn to live with this and deal with it, and our society is going to change as a result of that here, I think.
Guy Kelly of the Rocky Mountain News. Carla Crowder has been watching the evolution of changes in welfare, and this last week she did a story about how in the poor counties of Colorado, changing welfare is a very difficult proposition. The poor people, Carla Crowder, don't have anywhere to go.
No, they don't, and we hear so much about how Denver economy is booming, the metro area has jobs for anyone who wants to work. But it does cost something to move to this area, and housing is very expensive. If you have children, that's something else to think about. And there are people who live in some of the rural communities who just, for whatever reason, they don't have savings, living from paycheck to paycheck. When they had jobs, maybe were laid off and have some kind of medical problems, those kind of things. And for them to move would just, according to those county officials, would sink them deeper into poverty because of the cost of, apartment deposits and that kind of thing. And so what some of these counties are hoping to do is provide some jobs in counties where there just haven't been very many jobs before, to keep those families there so they won't all just flee to the cities.
As you noted in your story, a lot of people assume, well, you can live out in the rural area, it won't be very expensive, but if there aren't any jobs, it doesn't help you that much.
No, it doesn't, and that's kind of a cycle that we see is in some of these counties, new families who come from out of state, they hear about really cheap land, especially in the San Luis Valley. And so if you don't have anything, you at least can set up a trailer or, build your own house or something like that, and that way your family won't be homeless. But then they realize that maybe the few jobs that they heard rumors of are not there, and some of the families are very new to welfare. It's not generations who have been on public assistance, but it's just they've been misled about job opportunities and feel like they have nothing else, nowhere else to go or no other opportunity to feed their kids other than get on public assistance for a time.
And one of the aspects of welfare, more than a year ago, welfare recipients were told you can have a cash amount of money each month for 2 years. At the end of 2 years, which now is less than a year away, the money stops.
That's right. And actually, it can be sooner than that. With welfare reform, the states and the counties and individual caseworkers have so much power and say-so over their clients' lives. They can determine a client is job ready or a recipient is job ready and say, you must find a job now or your benefits will end. And we're seeing some of that. Maybe the adult in that family has a high school education or worked several years ago somewhere, and so the caseworker says, okay, you just need to go ahead and get a job now. And some of them are losing their benefits even before that year or two. But overall, pretty much everyone who doesn't have some kind of severe handicap or maybe a disabled child is expected to be in a job in about another 10 months.
Brian Weber would like to jump in.
Carla, you just mentioned the lower education level of some of these parents, and that's is a big issue. It limits their opportunities. Our school districts, community colleges, hooking up with the counties to do training programs to try to give these people more tools in which to find opportunities.
There are. One thing that we've seen with welfare reform is a lot of extra money available from the federal government to implement these kind of programs. People who have dropped out of school or fallen through the cracks before are been being encouraged to get GEDs, and there's all kind of programs at community colleges to help them. There have been some counties where getting the information out to these recipients that the programs are available, it's taken a year or so just for them to make the appointments with their caseworkers to find out that yes, they can get help with childcare or they can get education, but there are additional programs that were never available before. So that could be a real positive thing as far as preparing people for good jobs.
And Mark Eddy would like to jump in.
Carla, I was wondering what happens, we've got these problems with this transition off of welfare when the economy is so good that jobs are hard to find. What's going to happen, do you think, when the economy takes an inevitable downturn and there aren't so many of these jobs that everybody says there are?
I think that remains to be seen. That's concern for a lot of the advocates for the poor that I've talked to have a lot of concern about that. And the idea is to take this 2 years that we have now, or a year that's left, and give these people the kind of education and the kind of preparation that they've never had before, so they can get permanent jobs, higher paying jobs, not just food service jobs or low paying jobs that are the first to go when the economy gets into trouble again. But whether we're doing that or not is a matter of lots of debate.
And finally, on that front, in Castilla County, where there aren't jobs available, the county is looking for potential employers. Hard to come by.
Yes, it is. And one business that's come to them is a huge hog farming operation, which of course has been extremely controversial in Colorado. And the commissioners seem to be really taking their time and studying this and seeing if this is really the best thing for the county. That's why the hogs haven't shown up yet, because they're taking a lot of time with it, and hopefully they'll have a lot of discussion with the citizens, because there are plenty of environmental groups down there who already are saying, we don't care if it's going to bring in jobs, this is going to do more harm than good. So that remains to be seen.
Carla Crowder of the Rocky Mountain News. Touched on education, many of the districts around the state need additional dollars, among them Denver. Boulder and Denver opened this week. Brian Weber?
That's right, Don. This year is going to be a year of what a lot of people say they want, is choice in education. And they're going to have some tough ones related to spending millions of dollars on the state and local level. And there's going to be a lot of choices at the local level for more reform, different types of schools, particularly in Denver and the metro area. As far as the money goes, in the statewide level, you have the state $500 million of the state surplus that's going to be on the ballot for education, higher and lower. And then also around the metro area, Denver, Jefferson County, Cherry Creek are going for tax increases or big bond issues to build new schools to accommodate growth. So those are going to be some really serious decisions for people about property tax hikes.
And if the decision is to support the districts, and that hasn't necessarily happened in recent years, is it for growth only or to change the direction of education?
It's mostly growth, particularly in Denver. Denver's birth rate has been going up, and people have been moving back into the city. They need, there's at least 9 new schools that need to be built, primarily in the northwest, northeast parts of the city. And same thing in the suburbs. They're growing and they need to build new schools. Cherry Creek's been crowded for years. So it's mostly for that.
Charter schools play a more important role these days.
That's right, and that's one of the big choices that are real prominent this year in particular. There's 8 new ones in the state. 6 of them are dealing with at-risk kids, troubled teenagers, pregnancy, lower income. And 4 of those 6 are in the Denver area, in the Denver area, and it's a change of direction for charters. Usually, most charters, there's 60 of them in Colorado, and most of them been in the suburban areas, been real parent-generated, parent-driven, more core curriculum, and their variations. But coming into the city is a real change, and charter school people consider that a real positive change.
Charter schools essentially have more parental involvement. They're really in the day-to-day activities.
Yes, their charters are set up as run by parents, teachers, and administrators using tax money, but are free from school district rules, particularly union rules, and they usually can hire teachers for less money. They usually hire more people that way. They're free from a lot of the bureaucracy that most schools have to deal with. And they can develop, they have a little more more freedom they have a lot more freedom about curriculum, but they do have to meet all the state standards. They have to take tests, and they are very much parent-driven. That's where most of these begin.
Last year, there was an attempt at an Edison school in Jefferson County. It didn't work out. Denver is going to see one through.
Right. Denver's got its first Edison school. The Edison Project is a for-profit company. It's running 50 schools nationwide this year. It located in northeast Denver in the Cole neighborhood, one of the lowest income areas of the city. With a partnership of a community organization, they renovated an old historic building, school building called the Wyatt School. It opens in another week or so. Edison is unique in that it puts computers in kids' homes. It has longer school days and longer years, has a huge emphasis on reading, has all the up-to-date, very modern curriculum, and a lot more adults to kid ratio, which particularly works in those lower income areas.
Not too different from that is a new school in Montbello. I mean, it's a computer-driven school. The teachers think they're going to love it.
Right. It's sort of the school of the future. It's the Jessie Maxwell School. It's named for the first black woman principal, first black principal in the state. It has a real up-to-date computer lab, has computers in each classroom, television monitors. They can produce all kinds of productions that way. It's very done in nice soft colors, and it's the type of school Denver wants to build with the $350 million bond issue.
And the students may wear uniforms?
They do wear uniforms. They wear khaki pants, shorts, or jumpers, and they wear white shirts or burgundy shirts. That was the parents voted on that, and they feel like that there's a sense of pride in the school. There's a sense of lack of competition on dress. It's a lot easier for parents in the morning to get kids dressed. It is much simpler, and they think it looks nice and crisp. The school is a fundamental kind of school, strong discipline, high expectations, a lot of core curriculum.
Brian Weber, just in a couple lines. Again, this week we saw results, SAT scores. Colorado a little higher.
It went up. Colorado went up slightly, but it didn't go up that much, and it's above the national average. But according to education leaders, it's not a lot to cheer about because there's still a huge gap between whites and minorities, and there's also been a change in how the test is graded, and it's hard to say that it's really increased that much.
And really, in one line, boys still score higher than girls on SATs.
Yes, they do.
Why, in one line?
That's the big question. No one really seems to know.
Education reporter Brian Weber of the Rocky Mountain News. That's our broadcast for this week. From our colleagues, I'm Don Kenny. Have a good weekend.
Funding for the state of Colorado is provided by the Monfort Family Foundation. The State of Colorado, now in its 20th year, is produced in cooperation with Rocky Mountain Reflections. The State of Colorado provides background on issues of this week. Friday at 8:30, Sunday at 1:30.